Walking for 10 minutes after dinner does something to your metabolism that no evening supplement, no detox tea, and no post-meal ritual has ever been able to replicate, and the science behind it is something most people have never been told. Don't forget to subscribe, comment and share for others to benefit. Here's a scenario most people recognize. Dinner is done. The plate is cleared. And within 20 to 40 minutes, a familiar heaviness settles in, a kind of physical and mental fog that makes the couch feel mandatory and productivity feel impossible. Most people accept this as a natural consequence of eating. They assume the body simply needs to shut down to digest, and that sitting still is the appropriate response. That assumption is not just incorrect. It is actively working against the body's metabolic interests in a way that compounds silently over months and years. What actually happens in the hour after a meal, and what you choose to do with your body during that window, has a disproportionate influence on how your metabolism functions, how your body stores or burns the fuel it just received, how well you sleep that night, and what your hormonal environment looks like when you wake up the following morning. A 10 to 20-minute walk after dinner interrupts a cascade of processes that, when left unmanaged, steer the body toward fat storage, disrupted sleep, and progressively worsening insulin sensitivity. And when this single habit is practiced consistently over 14 days, the changes that accumulate go far beyond what most people expect from something this simple. The blood sugar mechanism most people never hear about. Every time you eat a meal containing carbohydrates, your blood glucose rises. That's normal, it's how the body receives and begins processing dietary energy. The problem isn't the rise itself. The problem is the size of the spike, how long it stays elevated, and how much insulin the pancreas must release to bring it back down. Chronically large post-meal glucose spikes, the kind that occur when you eat and then remain sedentary, force the pancreas to produce increasingly large insulin responses over time. That sustained pattern is one of the most well-documented pathways to insulin resistance, which is the metabolic dysfunction underlying type 2 diabetes, stubborn abdominal fat accumulation, and the afternoon energy crashes that most people attribute to stress or poor sleep. Walking immediately after a meal changes this equation at a mechanical level. Skeletal muscle, particularly the large muscle groups in the legs, has the ability to absorb circulating blood glucose directly, through a pathway that does not require insulin to function. When those muscles are active, they pull glucose out of the bloodstream as fuel for movement, independent of the insulin signaling cascade. The post-meal glucose spike is blunted. The insulin response is reduced. The hormonal disruption that would otherwise follow a sedentary evening is largely avoided. What starts happening to your sleep? By the end of the first week, a second and equally significant shift begins to emerge, and most people don't connect it to the walks at all. Sleep quality improves. Not marginally. For most people who introduce this habit consistently, the improvement in sleep onset, the time it takes to fall asleep, and in sleep depth is noticeable within 7 to 10 days. The mechanism behind this runs directly through the evening hormonal environment. Cortisol, the body's primary stress and alertness hormone, follows a natural daily rhythm. It peaks in the early morning to support waking and alertness, and it should decline progressively throughout the day, reaching its lowest point in the late evening to allow melatonin to rise and sleep to begin. Better sleep is not a secondary benefit of this habit. It is a primary and compounding one, because the downstream effects of improved sleep, enhanced overnight growth hormone release, better appetite regulation the following morning, improved insulin sensitivity, more stable mood and cognitive function, all feed back into the metabolic and physical goals most people are actively trying to achieve through far more complicated means. The digestive shift nobody talks about. There is a third mechanism that begins developing through the second week of consistent post-dinner walking, and it receives almost no attention in mainstream fitness conversation. Gastric motility, the rate and efficiency with which the stomach processes and moves food through the digestive tract, is directly influenced by physical movement. Upright walking stimulates rhythmic contractions in the gastrointestinal tract through a combination of mechanical motion and vagal nerve activation. This accelerates gastric emptying in a controlled way, reducing the duration that food sits fermenting in the stomach, which is the primary cause of post-meal bloating, gas, and the sensation of uncomfortable fullness that many people experience as routine. Body composition over time. By day 14, the individual effects of blunted glucose spikes, improved sleep quality, and enhanced digestive function have been compounding daily. And while 14 days is not enough time to produce dramatic visible changes in body composition, the metabolic conditions that those 2 weeks have established are precisely the conditions under which meaningful body composition change occurs most efficiently. Improved insulin sensitivity means the body is more capable of directing dietary carbohydrates toward muscle glycogen rather than adipose tissue. Better sleep means overnight fat oxidation, which is significantly higher during deep sleep than during shallow or fragmented sleep, is proceeding more completely. Lower evening cortisol means the hormonal environment is less conducive to abdominal fat retention, which is directly stimulated by chronically elevated cortisol in the context of caloric surplus or even maintenance eating. None of this is dramatic on any individual day. Across weeks and months of consistent practice, the accumulated effect on body composition is real and measurable, not because walking after dinner burns significant calories in itself, but because it systematically improves the biological conditions that govern how the body manages, stores, and burns the energy it takes in. This is what separates habits that work quietly but durably from interventions that produce fast initial results and then plateau. The post-dinner walk is not exciting. It does not feel like it should matter as much as it does. But it is restructuring the metabolic and hormonal architecture of your evening in a way that compounds in your favor every single night it's practiced. Conclusion: 10 minutes. After dinner. No equipment, no gym, no cost. What it produces across 14 consistent days is a quieter nervous system in the evening, a more stable hormonal environment through the night, better sleep architecture, improved digestive function, and a metabolic baseline that is meaningfully more favorable than the one you started with. These are not the most glamorous outcomes in fitness. There is no dramatic before and after. There is no single moment where the change becomes visible. But the people who build genuinely healthy, functional, resilient bodies over the long term are almost always the people who mastered the unglamorous habits first. The ones that don't trend, don't get filmed, and don't feel significant in the moment they're performed. A walk after dinner is one of them. Start tonight. Not because it will change everything immediately. Because 14 days from now, you will be able to feel, clearly and specifically, that something has shifted. And that feeling is the beginning of understanding what consistent, well-placed effort actually does to a body over time.